What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for December 15th, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Happy We Threw Snowballs at Santa Claus Day. Yes, it was on this day 55 years ago, the infamous snowballs at Santa at Franklin Field happened. Something that, as Eagles fans, we have not heard the end of since. It's been 55 years and the narrative is still going strong. So even before we recap yesterday's question of the day, we're going to get to today's question of the day. And the question of the day is, which Philly fan narrative is at this point the most played out? Is it the snowballs at Santa? Is it, oh, the Philly fans are the worst? Is it you had a gel at the vet? Or is it that we boo our own players and run them out of town? Let me know. Hit up that voice and text line 267-495-8531. 267-495-8531. Let me know which Philly fan narrative is the most played out. Is it we are just the worst fans? Is it you threw snowballs at Santa? Is it, well, there was a gel at the vet? Or is it that we boo and run our own players out of town? Let me know. All four of them are played out. I'm sick, and didn't even make the list, but I'm sick and tired of well, they're passionate. Well, no shit. All fans are passionate. It's kind of like an underhanded sort of, well, she has a nice personality. No, like it's ridiculous. But tell me which one of these narratives is played out. Is it that we are the worst, snowballs at Santa, jail at the vet, or we boo and run our own players out of town? That is today's question of the day. Hit up that voice and text line 267-495-8531. Let me know what you're thinking. So recapping yesterday's question of the day, I asked simply, what can the Eagles do to fix their problems? And to me, there's no shocker, no surprise that everybody was all over the board with this one. Nobody really ran away. Like, it was pretty much a 25-25-25 25 split. Run the ball, not turn the ball over, get a better pass rush, and then the better coaching. So we'll see. I do think, and we'll get more on that later on in the show, I do think we're going to see a different team come out on Monday night. If for no other reason, then they don't have a choice. There needs to be a different team come out. But again, more on that later. But again, thank you for reaching out and participating in yesterday's question of the day. We'll recap and go over today's question of the day one more time later on in the show. Today is the final day for our gift and food drive for the Maddie Ann Dixon Community Cupboard. Thank you so much for everyone who has donated up to this point, and sent me. If you did it anonymously, it's fine with me too. I appreciate all you've done. This is the last day. We don't have an item of the day, so get whatever you're getting. Get them over to Maddie Ann Dixon. If you have any questions or concerns, there is a little bit of a buffer, but not much. Get in contact with me. Hit me up offline. But let's not forget about them once the holidays are over as well. It's nice to do this around the holidays especially, but let's not forget about them in, let's say, July when it's the middle of the summer. But if you are looking for some last-minute ideas, even though we're not doing the reverse advent calendar ended yesterday, they are looking for boxed mashed potatoes, hot chocolate, and graham crackers. So any of those items last minute, if you want to take them and head over, they're looking for that. But again, thank you so much. The support and response to this was just overwhelming. Did not expect it being the first year we're running this. I'm looking forward already to next year. I think we're going to make this bigger, and it's a testament to you. So thank you. Today's 25 days of kindness. Our act of kindness for today is, since the food drive's a little bit over, or is over, and you have a little bit extra time, put together a care package for a soldier overseas that might be away from their family this holiday season. There's plenty. I did read that none of the military branches actually do this on their own. It all comes through third parties. There's a ton of them. I think the United Way has one. I think the Red Cross has one. The one that came up most in a search was anysoldier.com, and they had some pretty legitimate reviews. But just do a little research on that and send a care package. There's different options and different things you can do, but just kind of support them because they're over there fighting, so we can hang out with our families and enjoy the holidays. So that's our act of kindness today, is put together a care package for a soldier who will not be at home over the holiday season. All right, Flyers. Good win. And I was able to watch the third period of this game, and it was an overtime. It was an exciting game. They beat the Capitals 4-3 on a shootout. They tied the game with 3 minutes left, and it was very exciting down at the Wells Fargo Center. I have to admit, and I really got into this watching it on TV. And if you're not watching the Flyers, I'm telling you now, I've been saying it, they're already exceeding the expectations I think that anybody had for them this season. But they're fun. Like, it was actually entertaining to watch that game. And just the resiliency and the drive they had to come back there in the third period was amazing. So good win for the Flyers, 4-3 over the Capitals in overtime with a shootout. Sixers in action again tonight against Detroit. This time they're at the Wells Fargo Center themselves. Detroit obviously is the worst team in the league. Looking for another dominant performance like we had the other night. And I don't want to pile on Doc, but these are those games that they struggled with under Doc. So hopefully they can continue their dominant performance and get the guys some rest there in the second half tonight. Sad news out of Sixers camp. Legend and Hall of Famer George McGinnis passed away. He was only with the Sixers for 3 years, but they were 3 pivotal years. So he came over from the ABA, played with Dr. J and why can't I think of the other guy's name now? The defense. That's going to bother me now. I had it. I was like, I'll remember. I don't have to write it down. Now I can't remember. But he came over, and everybody credits that Dr. J was sort of the guy that everybody talked about from the ABA for the Sixers. But George McGinnis was the guy that really is credited a lot of times with the just getting the Sixers over the hump. He helped. He was an all-star while he was here, helped lead them to the 77 finals. Unfortunately, it did not work out for them. But it was George McGinnis who really helped put the Sixers back on the map, because they weren't that. I mean, they were a terrible team. They weren't that far removed from their 9-73 season. So he, like I said, doesn't get enough credit for doing what he meant to the Sixers. Because everybody talked about Dr. J, and then you had Moses and those guys. Moses didn't come along until later, but George McGinnis really was the catalyst for that Sixers team that went to the finals in 1977 and brought them back to relevancy. And again, without him, it just would not have been there. Put them on the map, and then, ironically enough, got traded to the Denver Nuggets for Bobby Jones, who Bobby Jones ended up being an integral part of that 82-83 championship season. A Hall of Famer himself. Not too often you see 2 Hall of Famers get traded for each other in the prime of their careers, and it works out well for both the players and the teams. But George McGinnis, rest in peace, sending thoughts and prayers to his family. Like I said, a big reason of why the Sixers returned to being relevant in the mid-'70s. Came over from the ABA, him, Dr. J, and Caldwell Jones. Bobby Jones is what made me think of it. But yeah, so everybody talks about Dr. J and Caldwell Jones as the guys that really put the Sixers. But like, he was like, I read a quote somewhere that Dr. J and Caldwell Jones were like the decoration, the walls and the roof of the house, and George McGinnis was the foundation. So he will be missed. Was only here for a short time, but his impact was great for the Sixers. So condolences to George McGinnis's family in this tough time. All right, Eagles news. And a couple things. Injury reports. Looks like Geno Smith is going to play. And, I mean, I'm not high on Geno Smith. I feel Geno Smith is who he is. He had a great year last year, but you see he was very inconsistent so far this year. I mean, obviously it's a different they're a different team with him in there. But again, there should be no issue no matter who the quarterback is. The Eagles are the better team, so it shouldn't matter. Zach Cunningham, Darius Slay, and Cam Jurgens did not practice yesterday, but I don't know if we should be as concerned about that as we normally would be since they play on Monday night. And like Nick Sirianni's practice schedule this week was a little funky. He was switching things up. Reed Blankenship, battling back from the concussion protocol, was limited in practice. He hasn't cleared yet, but another one of those situations since there's the extra day that could be good news for the Eagles. We'll know more going into now tomorrow's podcast and then Sundays because of the practice schedules. But Hurts, I talked a lot about him this week and wanting to see more out of him. And I have to say, the guy never ceases to amaze me. And the quote he had yesterday is like, look, this is something we're going through, not necessarily stuck in. So I think the mindset is right. They're saying the right things. Now they just got to get out on the court or the field and prove it. I mean, this is going to be a long weekend. Like especially after the past two Sundays, I'm ready to get out and see some good Eagles football. So looking forward to that Monday night. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. New episode dropped yesterday. Another good episode by those guys. Just they're doing it right over there. It's a fun, entertaining look around the NFC East. So be sure to check that out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, the Clashing Conferences podcast. All right, and we do have a little bit of Phillies news today. And they actually met yesterday with Japanese pitcher Yamamoto. Not sure how that's going to go. Looking to probably get somewhere in the range of $300 million. However, with the way that Ohtani's contract is, who knows what's going to happen. But if the Phillies can somehow snag Yamamoto, I think that's a huge get and will really get me excited. Yeah, they still probably need another bat, but I mean that really bolsters that rotation. So fingers crossed that works out. Be sure to check out our boys over at Philly Goat as well. Great company, great organization. There's a reason why they're the GOAT of Philly sports apparel. Just go check them out. They have such a selection. All the sports are covered. They have Philly neighborhood, all kinds of Philly-centric, fun T-shirts, hoodies, hats, and things like that. Ryan over there is a great guy. So go check out phillygoat.com. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your order, whether it's Mega John, Fly, the Flyer stuff. We got the Philadelphia Quakers shirt that we inspired with the podcast. Go check it out. See what they're doing. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery, 10% off of your order. You won't be disappointed. That's phillygoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery. All right, today's an interesting one. We're going to go back to 1973. And on this day in 1973, the Temple Owls went to Tennessee and lost 11-6. No, this was not a football bowl game. This was a college basketball game. And yes, you heard that score right, 11-6. How did two teams that were non-elementary school, just learning out kids at the Y combine for 17 points? Well, it was an interesting story. So 8 minutes into the game, first-year Temple coach Don Casey told his two guards, take the ball up across midcourt and then just dribble and pass to each other and just kind of run down the time. Tennessee had, I guess, a high-flying offense at the time. And just do this as long as Tennessee's going to allow you to do it. The score was 7-5 at the time, and Tennessee let it go till halftime. So the score at halftime was 7-5. Tennessee was winning. And this was pre-shot clock era. The shot clock wasn't instituted in college until after the 84-85 season when Villanova won. There's your Philly tie-in for that. But the stall play was legal, and usually a lot of teams used it, but not until like late in the game when they were trying to run out or hold on to a lead. And definitely not for a full 11 minutes. This was just unprecedented at the time. Tennessee got the ball to open up the second half and then said, you know what, we can do this too. Stalled 3 minutes just to kind of piss off Temple and Don Casey. Temple got the ball back and then held for the ball for 14 minutes then. Just stood there. Like, imagine you paid money to see this game, and you're just seeing two guys dribble and pass, dribble and pass. They did it for 14 minutes, and then with about 2 minutes left in the game, they started playing and trying to win the game. Tennessee held on for the 11-6 win. Len Kosmolowski for Tennessee was the leading scorer with a whopping 5 points. It was the lowest scoring game in college since 1938. It was Temple. Temple had the lowest output of any team since that 1938. It was Tennessee's lowest scoring game ever, but the previous one was 17-4 against Clemson in 1926. Temple, however, this was not even their lowest scoring game. We talked the other day about the Drexel game, but Temple beat Penn 3-1 in 1897, and I did do a little of the research on that, and this was still Peach Basket days. The game was obviously completely different. More on this Tennessee-Temple game, though. Tennessee made no shots in the second half, only free throws. And Temple, even with scoring 5 points in this game, still averaged 60 points that year. So it wasn't even like they were a bad offense. They went 16-9. But on this day, back in 1973, the Temple Owls went down to Tennessee and lost to the Volunteers 11-6 in a college basketball game, not baseball or soccer or football, a basketball game, 11-6 on this day in 1973. Needless to say, Tennessee was pissed, and it was a long time. I think it was in the 2000s finally when Tennessee Tennessee played Temple again, like scheduled wise. But just I could not imagine being in that game, and like the AD or it was either the AD or the president for Tennessee apparently wanted to have like an inter-squad scrimmage for the fans because he felt like they got cheated, but it never materialized because at one point there was no fans left. Like most of the fans had left the game because they were just pissed off at what it was. But 11-6, Tennessee beat Temple in a basketball game in the 70s. Told you it was interesting today. All right, continuing our Philly sports advent calendar, we open the door up today, and standing there is the late Mike Pitts, defensive tackle for the Eagles. He was drafted in the first round, number 16 overall, out of Alabama by the Falcons after being an All-American the year before. When he was in Atlanta, he played 4 years, had 25 sacks, which during that 4-year time frame, 83 to 86, was the sixth most in the NFL for a defensive tackle. Or I think just in the NFL in general, now that I'm kind of like thinking about the math. So not too bad. Even if it was just for a defensive tackle, still not too bad. Buddy Ryan came in and started coaching the Eagles in 1986, had his eye on Mike Pitts. One thing you can always say about Buddy Ryan is when it came to defensive players, he had an eye for talent and wanted guys that fit into his system and play his way. So he ended up, Mike Pitts was holding out in Atlanta in training camp for a new contract. So new coach Buddy Ryan traded veteran Greg Brown, who was a defensive end, to Atlanta for Mike Pitts. Mike Pitts was a smart and fast guy, and for my money, he's the forgotten guy on that Eagles defense. Everybody talks about Reggie, Clyde, Jerome, Seth Joyner, Eric Allen, Andre Waters, Byron Evans, all of those guys. And Mike Pitts was just the kind of, I don't want to say forgotten, but just the other guys. So like on that 91 defense, like that defensive line was just outstanding. And it was like Reggie, Clyde, Jerome, and then, oh yeah, Mike Pitts. And then you throw like Mike Golick in there too. And it's just like, Mike Pitts was just a forgotten guy. 6 years with the Eagles, 19.5 sacks. That's seventh most in team history for defensive tackles. His high point came in 1989 with 7. And again, I think he was underrated. His numbers obviously were a little bit better in Atlanta, but he fit, like he was a key piece of this defense. And when you have like Hall of Famers like Reggie White, Jerome Brown, who likely would have been a Hall of Famer had he not passed away tragically, Seth Joyner, who is maybe not a Hall of Famer, but a damn good player, Clyde Simmons, who fits that bill too, Eric Allen, who should be a Hall of Famer. You had all these guys, and then you have Mike Pitts, who just came in there and did what he needed to do and just was a great player. He eventually was cut after training camp in 1992, played 2 seasons in New England. Bill Parcells snatched him up quick. Then he coached a little bit in Cleveland, and then unfortunately died in 2021. But number 74, Mike Pitts, is today's Philly Sports Advent Calendar gift of the day. Quite possibly the most underrated and most forgotten guy on those Eagles defenses. So shout out to you, Mike Pitts, today's Philly Sports Advent Calendar gift of the day. On this day in 1973, Tennessee beat the Temple Owls 11-6 in a game where Temple basically stalled and held the ball for over 25 minutes in the game. Just because it didn't really work out for them, and this kind of was the poster argument for, hey, we need to get the shot clock in college, but it still would be another 12 years before that went into effect. Thank you again for all of your hard work with the food drive. I truly appreciate it. I'm going over later this morning to drop off our donations. I'll keep you posted on how that goes tomorrow. Don't forget to use the voice and text line 267-495-8531 to answer today's question of the day. Which Philly sports narrative is the most annoying or the worst take, whatever you want to call it? Is it that Philly fans are just the worst? We threw snowballs at Santa. We had jail at the vet. Or the fact we boo our own players and run them out of town? Let me know on that voice and text line. You can either call and leave a voicemail, send a text message, whichever is easiest for you, 267-495-8531 to get your voice or text heard. Again, happy We Threw Snowballs at Santa Day, a narrative 55 years, and Philly fans still can't live it down. So I think you can see which way I'm probably going to vote for this one. But let me know what you think. It's Friday. It was chilly out there this morning, but go have a day. Don't forget to get your care packages together for a soldier. That's our act of kindness for today. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.